So I'm working with an Albertan with complex needs. A complex needs service designation indicates a PDD eligible Albertan is a higher user of social and community services. Supporting this Albertan will require more intense services. We also realize that current practices and services do not meet the complex service needs. Traditional supports and services are not quite enough. This person requires intensive services. This person will need a behavior support plan. This presentation assumes that the person you are working with has met the complex needs criteria, that specialized training to support these complex needs has begun, and that risk management has been addressed. But let us not forget, everyone can benefit from wellness planning. Over the next 40 minutes, we want to introduce you to wellness as an approach to meet provincial policy that directs us to include behavior support planning as one element to meet complex service needs. Specialized training and risk management being two other elements explicitly identified with the PDD provincial policy. We would be happy to discuss with you, your agency, or your team future collaboration with other elements of support for Albertans with complex service needs. Our focus today is wellness as a means to behavior support planning. We will explore and explain some principles of wellness and introduce you to the practice of wellness planning. One more stop before we get to wellness. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. Before we go further, we need a quick understanding of best practice. We understand there is an Alberta solution. We find tips to best practice within the PDD manual itself. It starts with eligibility for PDD services, then building a person-centered outcomes plan, and with that plan in hand, Albertans are referred to local services. Regional services and local practices help Albertans and their families shop for individualized service. Best practice expects service providers to be accredited to provide the services they say they will deliver. Accreditation is one step to best practice. There are industry standards that give clear direction to support staff and agencies. The agencies must meet these standards. Agency practices must align with best practice. Individuals with complex service needs require specialized supports. Expertise is needed to support individuals in a safe and secure manner through a continuum of services. The PDD program provides resources to develop service provider and family managed service administrator expertise in supporting individuals with complex service needs. These resources include access to specialized training, risk management, and behavior support planning. Approaching complex service needs from a wellness frame of mind makes use of all three resources. Check out the Government of Alberta website for more information. One hidden gem is the PDD manual. It outlines the PDD policy. It provides a wealth of information, guidance, and resources available to service providers, administrators of family managed services, and all interested Albertans. Take some time to surf the pages. I am confident it will lead to better practices.
We will be adopting the best practices in our industry, just like everyone else.
If everyone is doing it, best practices is the same thing as mediocre.
Stop making mediocrity sound bad!
Sorry.
We need to move away from time expenditures that exhaust resources during crisis intervention, where they sit poised, preparing for intervention, or applying corrective measures and then trying to recuperate from that crisis experience and then doing it all over again. That's a high expenditure of energy and resources. When we spend more time focused on wellness, We will use less time for crisis intervention. We should have a plan ready, close at hand, that brings us back into balance to restore our wellness. We don't need to be burnt out. We don't need to be in a crisis. We do need to be well and to flourish. So the goal of this video is to help you better understand the philosophy of wellness in its relation to supporting persons with complex needs. The objective is to learn from each other as a community of supporters how to best support the wellness of all those experiencing mental, emotional, and behavioral health concerns, those Albertans with complex service needs. The planned outcome, that we all become more effective and conscious supporters of wellness. Yeah, maybe we become wellness engineers. A wellness approach facilitates quality of life. So wellness is defined as the quality or state of being in body and minds, especially as the result of deliberate effort. Multiple dictionaries give us a very similar definition. A person's overall wellness directly affects their behavior. A person's overall wellness directly affects their ability to learn. Our overall wellness directly affects the well-being of others. Now, wellness is about balance. Wellness and balance for the person and for their supports. Wellness planning can be done with anyone. When we study current and past models of care and support, it is important to note that people are interested in improving support practices. It is also clear that many are focusing on questions like, what keeps them well? What do they need to stay well? What do they need to be well supported and flourish in their communities? The search for better practice is our responsibility. Wellness is intuitive, and one interesting experience of our wellness intuition is that we can take the time to investigate and understand its impact on our and other people's lives. Over the last 60, 70 years, doctors, researchers, social workers, psychologists, nurses, and regular folk have taken time to understand some of the fundamental elements and concepts of wellness. This wellness movement includes multiple approaches and models, such as psychosocial rehabilitation and recovery model, dominant in the addictions and mental health fields; the title model, popular in nursing environments; rehabilitation models. These are current and long-time practices of community correction facilities, human services, occupational and physical therapies. History of happiness, initiated by research teams that moved from learned helplessness and hopelessness to wellness and happiness models. Inclusion and belonging models, illustrated through Maslow's hierarchy of needs and contemporary researchers like David Petoniak. Safety planning, as experienced in our risk assessments, intervention planning, nursing care, and civil engineering. Psychosocial medical models, an early attempt at overcoming a singular wellness lens to include cross-disciplinary and multi-experiential models of wellness. Our wellness is all-encompassing. It includes our biology, our psychological states, our social history, our memories, our thoughts, our actions, emotions, medical conditions, and spiritual experience. Imagine a town full of physically impaired people. All wheelchair users. They run everything. There aren't any able-bodied people, so naturally, when they built the town, the community decided it was pointless to have ceilings 10 feet high and doors 7 feet high. So these ceilings were built at 7 feet, and the doors at 5 feet. In every way, they designed the place the way they wanted it. One day, a few able-bodied people come to stay. One of the first things they noticed is the height of the doors, and the reason they noticed is because they keep hitting their heads. They come to stand out by the bruises on their foreheads. Soon doctors, psychiatrists, and social workers all become involved. Committees are formed. Many people are worried about what has become known as the problem of the able-bodied. Throughout the town, there is a real growth of concern. Specially toughened helmets are handed out free to the able-bodied, to be worn at all times. Braces are designed which give support and relief, while keeping the able-bodied wearer bent to normal height. Various groups of compassionate wheelchair users get together and form registered charities. Every quarter they have a collection day. Upturned helmets are left on the pubs and shops for people to drop change into. There is talk of founding special homes. But then one day, it dawns on the able-bodied that there is nothing wrong with them, just that society excludes them. Everyone. This wasn't a trick question. History can tell us a lot about ourselves and our wellness experience. Reviewing history through a wellness lens can be shocking. History has not been kind to those identified as unwell or unwanted. They were called all kinds of things and exposed to all kinds of abuse. There was an unnatural and irrational fear of being contaminated by their unwellness. After the Second World War, the perspectives of personal and social wellness were rapidly changing. In 1948, the World Health Organization described health wellness as a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, and not merely the absence of disease or infirmity. Civilians and peacetime populations were forever changed by the horrors and brutality of war. In the 1940s and into the 50s, injured and disabled veterans returning home from wars were demanding social support and assistance so they could be reintegrated meaningfully in their communities. The plight, challenges, and social inequities of being disabled were being talked about in the open with their families, communities, and governments. In the 1950s, experts began moving people out of the institutions and into the communities, and the number of people enrolled in informal institutions dropped dramatically. However, communities were not necessarily prepared for those who needed intensive care. For the first time, national vital statistics were being gathered and used to understand the health and well-being of citizens. Healthcare took on new roles. Social services were established, and the care of those more vulnerable became a social responsibility. In the 1970s, across Canada, there was a movement to integrate people with disabilities into the community. The care systems of the time found it difficult to defend their practices as support for individual wellness. Institutional systems were being challenged as best practice care providers. We were evolving from a sickness, deficit, and illness model to reflect on wellness as a social responsibility. It was becoming more about me and my neighbors. So wellness research and concepts in providing care are not new. There is considerable interest and research focusing on wellness that we cannot ignore today. There is a body of research and study that points to best practice, and we need to pay attention. So wellness is not freedom from a disability, illness, addiction, or mental health. Wellness is how people live and are supported to feel well and healthy despite living with a disability, illness, addiction, or mental illness. So why wellness? Well, we understand that providing care can be extremely overwhelming at times. It is hugely demanding. It requires a significant amount of training. It requires us to practice our strategies and approaches. It requires support for the supporters. Wellness planning will help you focus on the positives and build upon them. Wellness planning will focus on tension reduction and maintain lasting professional relationships. Wellness planning will provide internal and intrinsic reward. Wellness planning will help the teams feel less overwhelmed. Wellness planning will reduce the risk of caregiver burnout, and wellness planning will bring some of the fun back into the program and support teams. And why is understanding about the complexity of needs important? Well, it should allow you to understand that it takes many coordinated supports to meet the needs of any one individual. It should allow you to understand the importance of good communication with that person and other supporters that we work with. It can provide an understanding about why it's important to find a focus area and a philosophy of care to work within. So the following slides are just a few examples of research information that supports the notion that there is a real complexity to care issues that are faced by teams who choose to support individuals with complex needs in the community. Most Albertans supported through the PDD service programs will be well served with traditional community support. Their support needs can be met through the person-centered planning and outcomes plan. Others will need additional support. There can be life events that complicate the support planning. These changes and increased needs cannot be met through traditional practices. This can increase exposure to hazards and exposing the individual, community, and support staff to additional risks or making identified risks less tolerable. These risks complicate personal health, wellness, and balance. These require special attention. Behavior is observable as words and actions. When we want to understand more about behavior, we can define it within the context of its actions or words. Behavior is traditionally categorized as fight, approach, flight, that's an avoid, or freeze behaviors. It is commonly agreed that every behavior has a function. The functions of behavior can be classified as attention, tangible, or sensory. Thoughts, thinking, fixating, ruminating, ideas, these are all ways we think. Memories impact our responses. We are more apt to remember how we felt than what might actually have happened. The study of motivation is shedding light into what drives us, what is often behind the behavior. Our personal mental health will impact our behavior and is often an underlying cause of many social, personal, and community risks. What happens when stress becomes unmanageable? Psychiatric disorders equally complicate our relationship to ourselves and others. Developmental disabilities can impact a wide range of behavior expressions and experiences. Cognitive impairments can further complicate behavior. Our medical health can have significant influence on our well-being and directly impact our behavior. Intellectual and learning disabilities are added layers. With this model, we can examine the impact of health or medical behavior as a contributor to the complexity of wellness. This medical model helps us understand the imbalances, the barriers, and the inequity of those managing wellness with a health or medical behavioral concern. To observe is that these behavioral health concerns increase poverty, isolation, and trauma, that this experience increases stress, that there is limited access to insured services and almost no access to private user-pay services. There are fewer specialists who are trained to treat or support people with these behavioral health issues. And there is an overall decrease in health and wellness outcomes. Another model is from a person, environment, occupation, performance perspective. We again observe the complexity of intrinsic and extrinsic factors that impact our well-being and quality of life. Here we have 10 components that influence the environment or the person and that these interactions have direct impact on occupational performance and participation. It's not our intention to overwhelm. It's already overwhelming enough. It's our intention to encourage you to better practice, to understand the intensity of providing complex service needs, to overcome the bias and inefficiencies of isolated support, to introduce wellness as a collaborative, communicative, and focused behavior support approach. We cannot do this alone. We modeled 3 complex perspectives from different lenses. Chances are not one model will explain their experience. Let's look at the systems that were designed, developed, and evolved to support people with disabilities. Multiple programs and services with equally different and divergent rules, regulations, policies, and practices. Within human services, we may encounter the Office of the Public Guardian, Office of the Public Trustee or other trustee, AISH, Assured Income Supports, persons with developmental disabilities. Community support services come in different approaches, philosophies, and flavors. We have support service programs, advocacy programs, low-income housing and crisis housing and shelters. Complex enough yet? Within health services, we are exposed to general health services, like our hospitals, medical clinics, and community nursing units, mental health and addiction services, long care facilities. Then if things aren't confusing and complex enough, we get tangled in the justice system. We got probation, court, police and law enforcement, maybe jail and remand. Then there are the numerous planning tools that we are exposed to, and they are not just our plans. They come at us from all different agencies, services, and sources. I won't name them all. Where do we start? Just tell me what to do? But be careful. If you don't tell me enough, I may do nothing. I may be that deer in the headlights, hoping that you don't run me down. I think you're getting the picture. Supporting someone with complex service needs is complex. Wellness is holistic. It is, by necessity, multidisciplinary. Support is not just about me, my team, or my agency. It's about collaborating and working together to support wellness. Wellness is not focused on fixing anything or anyone, except maybe our way to approach support. It's based on multidisciplinary research, study, and practice. You don't need to be a doctor, lawyer, psychiatrist, therapist, parent, holy man, or professor to practice, support, or promote wellness.
Imagine you've gotten away from your work, you're on holiday, on one of those cruises, in one of these ships. They're huge. These cruise ships are stories high. You saved money all year, bought yourself a ticket, and now you're away from New York City or Blacksburg, Virginia, on holiday. You're out on the deck of the ship reading a trash novel, and literally there's nothing to stress you out. It's just, life is good, you know? The most stressful thing you got to think about today is, what are you going to have for lunch, you know? Am I going to go to the 7th deck and have that Polynesian, or will I go up to the very top and do the barbecue thing today? And oh my gosh, the decision just overwhelms you, so you take a nap. At one point you're reading your book and a piece of paper gets away from you, and the next thing you know, you're out of your seat chasing the paper across the deck. And then you notice you've got your hand on your hat, and when you look around you see other passengers, they've all got their hands on their hats. It's then that you see in the distance on the horizon this cloud stuff. The source of this gusting wind is this cloud stuff. It looks like gray steel wool, and you realize we're heading into a storm. So you gather up your things, you know, to go below deck, and you're just opening that giant metal door. When you notice something, you see something happen that you can't even believe. It's kind of incomprehensible. You think it must be an optical illusion. That can't have just happened. But one of your fellow passengers, in a huge gust of wind, is swept off his feet, and he disappears over the railing of the ship. You're standing there with your stuff in your hands going, did I just see that? and you see a bunch of fellow passengers running to the railing of the ship, you run there too, and sure enough, stories below is this guy screaming and hollering at the top of his lungs. He's swallowed up by the water and spit back out. He's overboard. And then you hear one of your fellow passengers yell, "Man overboard! Man overboard! Call a human services provider! There's a man overboard!" And in what seems to take place in a kind of slow motion, this well-dressed man and well-dressed woman, dressed to the nines, come onto the deck of the ship, and they walk slowly over to the railing. They look overboard. They see the guy, stories below, swallowed up by the water and screaming. And the well-dressed man has in his hands a megaphone. And through the megaphone, he shouts to the guy down below, "That's attention-seeking behavior. And until you calm down, we are not going to provide you with any support whatsoever." Now, people laugh at that, how silly that sounds. But I think it happens all the time to people who experience disabilities. They're terrified, and we barely seem to notice.
Maslow's hierarchy of needs is a theory in psychology. It argues that there are 5 stages of human needs that motivate our behavior. Abraham Maslow proposed his theory in 1943 after studying what he called exemplary people, such as Albert Einstein or Eleanor Roosevelt. First, there are physiological needs, such as the need to breathe, eat, drink, or sleep. The moment we get enough of that and we feel awake and our bellies are full, we get motivated by the next thing. Now we want safety. We try to earn money, build up resources, and look for shelter that protects us against dangers. Once we are satisfied and feel safe, we have time to think about what we want next. At stage 3, we seek love and belonging. We desire to be close to family and friends, belong to a society, or join a gang. But the moment we feel completely part of a group, we already wish to be a little different than the rest. At stage 4, we look for esteem, self-confidence, and respect from our peers. We want to be someone. If we have money, we buy a fancy watch. If we have a brain, we write or think or work a lot. Motivation to perform and compete is now at its highest. Students, sportsmen, and inventors excel. Neil Armstrong even flew to the moon. Only if we breathe and drink and eat and sleep enough, and we feel safe and part of a group and still special, only then can we reach level 5, self-actualization. Now we can relax, be creative, accept facts for what they are, give back or do whatever we want. No more pressure, unless of course there is trouble below. If you are a leader and believe in the theory, use it. First, make sure everyone has eaten well. Then, make them feel safe and help them belong to a group. Once they feel they belong, they are ready to stand out and excel. Thanks for watching.
Our brains are hardwired to belong. In fact, neuroscientists say that 80% of what our brain is up to at any given point in time is thinking about social relationship. And the problem for people who experience disabilities is that they're lonely. As Beth Mount has said, loneliness is the only real disability. But everywhere I travel, I meet people, wonderful people, who might be having a difficult time with their behavior, but the thing I learn about them over and over again, many of these people, is that they're very lonely. A psychiatrist, his name is Willard Galen, said years ago, to be vulnerable is not to be in jeopardy, but to be vulnerable and isolated is the matrix of disaster. When those two things intersect, loneliness, your vulnerability and loneliness, you're really at great risk. And from my point of view, the work is to help people find meaningful and enduring relationships. There's nothing else we could do that would be more important than that.
Peter Leedy.
Make a bad match, Mitch. Take away control, Joel. Ignore her needs, Rashid. Now don't you forget, make a dumb plan, Stan. Watch it all hit the fan. Don't listen to him, Jim, and see what you get. Just make a dumb plan, Stan. Put him in a slot, Dot. Make a bad match, Mitch. Now don't you forget, listen less, Tess. Ignore her loneliness. Don't train your staff, Jeff, and see what you get.
There are many ways to plan for wellness. Connect is suggesting that we use 2 specific tools and supplement these tools with 2 additional planning structures that can help our teams understand some of the most common wellness challenges. We don't have time to cover all these points in this video, but Connect and any other Alberta community support team can help you and your team understand, develop, and use wellness planning as a behavior support tool. At the workshop, we will explore these components and identify specialized training that can enhance our understanding and delivery of services to people with complex service needs. What's going to follow here are some of the topics, tools, models, and strategies we use during the wellness workshops.
Then things grow old. No covers, no blankets, just cold. Don't know what to say today. We need to make another way. Catch a dream from another world. The one we wanted but never could. Like we said, we would. What has happened to my mind? My thoughts, my reason are left behind. Doors not opened, I must be blind. It's my life. I can't do what I like. This just sucks. Got another's luck. This ain't mine. I can't find the time. When we first met, it made my heart beat a step. Then things grow old. No blankets, no covers, just cold. It's my life. I can't do what I like. This just sucks. Got another's luck. This ain't mine. I can't find the time. This light I see, the eyes of God, not far away, not here today. Things are what they seem to be. That give and take is just weird to me. It's not even or odd. We teach our children to be kind and take it away like we won't mind. Doors not open, we must be blind.
All behavior is meaningful, and behavior always serves a legitimate communicative function. When behavior is challenging, we need to ask, what do they need? Why do they need this? Not, how do we stop this behavior? Addressing behavior with an understanding of the root cause increases the potential for meaningful change. It's important to consider the context of behavior. Positive behavior change is a common experience in a happy and a meaningful life.
Trust in yourself and you can achieve anything. All right, now all we need is a name. How about Blabbermouth, the jerky doll for jerks? How about Minerva, after the Roman goddess of wisdom?
Not enough commercial appeal.
Wendy Windbag? Ugly Doris? Hortense the mule-faced doll?
I think we should name her after Lisa. We'll call her Lisa Lionheart.
No, Loudmouth Lisa. Stupid Lisa Garbage Face. I can't stand this any longer. Somebody please pay attention to me. Hello? Pay attention to me. Look at me. I'm Bart. Look at me. Look at me. Look at me.
Why focus on wellness? Too often a person's story becomes fragmented and incomplete. We seldom get to know the real person. Focusing on crisis intervention strategies fails to support the overall wellness of a person. People with complex service needs benefit from coordinated wellness plans that increase our exposure to and the impact of positive experiences that lead to happiness. They benefit from plans that engage us in a declaration of their rights, freedoms, and liberties. A plan that involves health and enhances quality of life allows us to be well and flourish. A change in thinking. So what will it require? This training and the workshops, we will ask you to shift your thinking and planning processes from deficit and reactive strategies to focus upon what keeps us well. How to work with strengths and resources, building wellness strategies. Complex issues require that planning be done in a very holistic, collaborative, and coordinated manner. A positive mental attitude and outlook benefits us all. A conscious effort on our parts to seek out and understand the person's story so we can assist them to get where they want to go in their wellness journey. A willingness to help guide the person towards successful and long-lasting wellness. A non-judgmental, open-minded, thinking outside the box type of approach. Supporters combine communication techniques, motivational strategies, and coaching principles to enhance wellness. So why are we focused on wellness training in our community? Here are a few reasons. Increased wellness decreases the need for specialized services, such as decreased use of emergency services for non-emergencies, shorter hospitalization stays, decreased negative contact with the legal enforcement and court systems, and decreased involvement with the community corrections. When we are well, we tend to spend more time in our communities. Focusing on a person's strengths supports wellness. We have no cure or fix for a developmental disability, but we can plan for wellness, accounting for our abilities and strengths. Improved wellness will improve positive social experience. Wellness benefits mental, physical, and spiritual health. Increased wellness can reduce unhealthy risk-taking behavior. As wellness increases, crisis experiences decrease.
I used to stand in the rain. Now I'm walking in the sunshine. Not as dark as the pain. Getting brighter all the same. Now I'm standing in the sunshine and dressed better for